So right now in our sequence that starts the game, I have the character like imploring the player character to get into the gate. And in order to like convey that in a more dynamic, interesting way, I'd like to have him play an animation when he's yelling at her to hurry up and get inside. And so I'm gonna head to Mixamo and find an animation to use, and then I will set up our sequence to trigger this animation on the specific line where he's yelling, hurry up, get in. So I just searched for something that might work, and I found this one called Yelling. And the only reason I'm showing it is because I forget if we've talked about this before, but there's on some of these animations, there's interesting sliders here that are worth noting. So, if I reset this, I'm pretty sure there's a way to reset it somewhere, but I don't see it. Oh, I see how it works. You hover over it and you can reset each one. Anyway, so by default, like this direction one, at least, he looks like he's like hunched over, which I don't know if it's because of this character model or what, but I'm going to crank up direction all the way and kind of notice what it does. And in this case, I get lucky and it kind of makes him less hunched over. And I don't really think he needs to be angry. It's hard to really, you'd have to look at this carefully to try and note what's actually changing here. But my guy isn't meant to be angry necessarily. So I'll just put it there and I'll download this one. And I'm going to pause the video and I'll show you once I got it downloaded. Just a refresher here, I'm going to use FBX for Unity and without skin and leave the rest of these on their default. Alright, so I've got it downloaded. I'm going to go to my project window, and inside of assets I'm looking for my animations. And I'll just put these in this MPC animations folder, although technically I could use it on my player too, so maybe this is kind of a silly way to distinguish them. And I just dragged the one I downloaded in there. I'm just leaving the default name for now, but when you click it, we need to change its import settings a little bit. So first of all, it needs to be set to be a humanoid animation, and for the avatar definition, let's copy from other avatar and choose I guess I could use the Pete avatar. That's the one that the character I'm using, but it might be safe to just use a generic one here like Xbot too. I don't know. Probably doesn't matter too much at the level that I'm operating here, but if it looks weird, I might revisit this and see if I can fix it. And then I'm going to go to the animation tab here. Well, first, I'm going to apply these changes actually. And then I'm going to go to the animation tab, and now he's not falling through the floor anymore. And I see there's something named Yelling here, which is good. Sometimes it'll say like mixmo.com here. And if it does, I would recommend, renaming it to something that makes sense, because this is the actual name of the animation that will show up when we drag it into the animator controller, as opposed to the file name over here. So I'm going to hit play and just see if it works right. It does. That looks pretty good. So I think we should just leave the rest of the settings alone for now, and if something's not working right, we can revisit them. And then the next thing I want to do is find the MPC animator controller that is used for this character. So I guess this is actually a problem with having many of them. I wanted multiples to have variations so they don't all look the same, but you're going to have to be careful to see which one you're actually using. So if I click on Pete here, I want to look at his MPC, and I want to see what animator controller he's using, which is going to be on the MPC script. And you can see it says MPC nervous. So that's going to be the one that I want to add my new animation to. So I'm going to click on NPC Nervous. I think if I double click it, it'll open it in the animator window. If you don't have the animator window, you can click Window, Animation, and then choose Animator here, not Animation. And that should open it up for you, and then you could just drag it and dock it wherever you want. I like it down here for now so that I can see my game window at the same time, I guess. But actually, I'm going to quickly change my tune, I think. So I actually want to be able to see the project window for now. So I'm going to drag it up here. And this is going to allow me to find my yelling animation, which is in here somewhere. There it is. And I'm going to drag this into the graph here that shows my various animations. And I will get a little node that's named after the animation that I remember. If you look at this animation and you click on the animation tab, it's named after this. And so I think what I need to do next is think about when this thing finishes, when this animation finishes, what animation do I want to play? And I think I just want to go back to idle. So what I'm going to do is just make a transition that goes from here to idle. And so what's going to happen is my sequence command will tell it to play the yelling animation, and then when the yelling animation is done, it'll just go back to idle. And we might want to set it up to not have exit time. So I don't know. So like exit time, basically if your animation isn't transitioning fast enough, it's normally because of the exit time. So if it's like waiting forever and then switching, then this could be a culprit. But I don't think it's going to be a big deal for this transition in particular from yelling to idle. We'll find out. It would be a problem from idle to yelling, but we actually don't have to set that up. I think our sequencer command can do it for us, so we'll see. So now I've got the animation plugged in here. I just need to trigger it in my conversation. So I'm going to go to my intro conversation I've been working on here. And for the part that says quick get in, that Pete is saying here, this is where I want to add that animation. And so I'm going to just bring up the script or the sequencer command reference here in dialog system. Here's the reference. And you see you have some choices here. The one that I think is going to make sense for us right now is one of these two. We're not using the legacy animation system. We're using the animator, which is like that graph system I showed you. So we want to use the choices in the sequencer command reference that talk about animator. And in particular, I think we're either going to want animator play or animator play wait. So this one says it plays an animation or an animator state, and then it does not wait for the state to complete. And there's some parameters about what's the name of the state, which character. By default, it's the speaker. How long should it take to crossfade into that state? And if we had layers, you could customize that. We're not using layers. And then animator play wait says that it plays the animator state and then waits for the state to complete. So to be honest, I'm not super sure what that's going to look like either way. So let's just pick the first one and see how it looks, and then we can think if it makes sense to try the other one. And so let's go back to our conversation. On the quick get in node here, I want to take a look at its sequence. Let's go ahead and hit the plus button and find all sequencer commands and find that animator play. And if I click off of it, I guess is the trick to getting it to show up there. I wish it told me like what the parameters were. It's not super helpful, I guess. It's not as good as the script wizard thing, evidently, but I can look up the parameters that it needs. So it needs to know the state name, which was yelling, and I imagine capitalization is going to be important. So you're going to want to spell it exactly like it is here. And it's going to want to know who the speaker is. So the subject, and so by default it's the speaker, and in this case that's Pete, so that will work for me. So I think what I could maybe get away with is just doing this, like so. But let's see the crossfade thing. What's the default for that? The default is 0 play immediately. I think that's what I want to, but if it looks weird, we'll change it. And maybe actually I want this to happen like sooner in the sequence, like maybe before we switch the camera. I actually don't know. So like if I wanted to do that, technically these are all going to execute at the same time unless you put like an @ symbol and then tell it what time to do it. So like I could maybe start this one instantly and then delay this one a little bit, or maybe I could do it in the starting sequence. So I would set my animation here so it happens before we get to this. Well, let's just see how it works as it is, and then adjust as necessary. So in my scene window here, I'm going to hit play and we'll see what it looks like. So I didn't really notice him playing the animation. What I'm going to do now is let's take my animator window and put it down here and see if we can do a little debugging. So if I click on Pete, I'll see his animations playing. And I wonder if the issue here is we need to use like the character name up here actually, because the actor stuff is all set up on this game object, whereas the animator is on this game object. So that could be part of the problem. But I'm gonna actually, let's just watch it play out and see if this ever happens when I run the game. It doesn't look like it did. So we'll just real quick double check that it's there. And so let's try specifying a subject. This thing, I'm just gonna like copy and paste this text so I don't mess it up. And this actually is matching what I'm doing here with the camera sequence, so maybe this makes sense. We can hit check, that's green. So let's try it now. I should try to look at my, oh yeah, there he goes. It's working, but I don't have a great view. So let's see how this looks again. So it's playing, but my little mats here as part of my dialog UI are kind of blocking the view. So maybe I need like a more zoomed out camera shot to make this look good. So I'm going to go to the documentation again on dialog system and look at the default camera angles, which are here if you click using camera angles. And maybe if I try like full or wide, I'll be able to see more of my character. Or I could even try like down. That could be interesting. And if none of those work, I could read the instructions here about how to customize the camera angle so it's gonna work better for me. So let's just try wide first of all. And I'll hit play again. That's pretty good. Now the new issue is the timing. Like it cuts before he's kind of finished like imploring me to get in. So I kind of want, well, let's look at it again. This is tough. This is one of those things you have to watch carefully. I feel like it cuts a little too fast. What I might do is either change the default on this one. So remember, default is going to try to wait on this. It's going to try to wait on this node, which includes my animation and my camera shot of Pete, for an amount of time that's based on the text that I have him saying. If I wanted it to be longer than that, I could override this with a delay and then type in a number. So like, I don't know, 4 seconds maybe. And let's see how that looks. I thought that was good. I could maybe make it a little shorter. 3 seconds. And you can see how this is just like a, it's all about fine tuning. I don't know, maybe 3.5. But really what I might try and do is make it so that the player has to like click a button to continue. So then it would be like based on the player's decisions on how long they need to read each spot. And that is controlled by the dialog manager. There's something called a continue button, which if I find my dialog manager, I could go in here and find that option about the continue button. It's under the subtitle settings, and I can just, instead of never, like, why don't we just put always and see how that looks. So it's gonna stay here until I hit continue. And I might need to change my animation so that it loops and doesn't go back to idle. So that he continues beckoning me to come in. And then when I hit continue, you can see how this works. So this could be something you want to try. I'm not a huge fan about that default continue graphic, the way that button looks. You might want to customize it, which is kind of a can of worms if you don't know how to use Unity UI, but at least now you know about the option. So I'm going to switch mine back to never and just like see if I can practice timing and making it like look good. But I think, you know, in mini games like that are more like RPGs, like, you know, the BioWare games and The Witcher and stuff like that, a lot of times you would have that continue button kind of functionality. But if it's more of like The Last of Us or kind of like a more cinematic game and less of an RPG that's waiting for the player to make choices, a lot of times it's gonna like just automatically go to the next thing based on timing. So it's kind of based on the game you're trying to create. All right, that's plenty for this video. I'm going to go ahead and see you in the next one.